Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, sponsored by the Draft Professors. Joined today with Draft Professor Marcus. We're going to be diving into some tight ends. But Marcus, before we dive into some players, it's been a week since you and I have seen each other. It's great to see you. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about yourself? Just
Oh,
grinding on these players, man. That's what I'm doing right now.
yeah, and we podcast every day here. It's nice to hear new perspectives on the same players.
Yeah,
Right. So I like having a channel where the way that you look at the tight ends is not the way that everybody else will look at the tight ends, kind of thing. So I like just hearing different people's takes and seeing are you higher on a specific player, because this tight end class, we knew coming in from the summer that it wasn't going to be a good tight end class. Now, last
yeah.
year's tight end class was really good.
hmm
Um, this year, I think it's a really good tight end two class. As long as you don't need to get like a 70% snap tight end, I think this tight end class will be effective for team building. But out of the tight ends that you watched, Marcus, which one like sticks out to you the most in a positive way?
it's definitely Sadiq. I think Sadiq is, hands down the best tight end in this draft. Probably the only one's going to go first round, I believe. Just because I'll start with him as a blocker. I thought when I was going into it, I heard some things about him being kind of a below average blocker, but I think he's a pretty good. If I had to compare it to Brock Bowers, because Brock Bowers, that was kind of a knock on him a little bit when he was coming out, which I think he's improved on in the NFL actually by a lot. I thought he's become a better blocker in the NFL. Which I think blocking is teaching too, as well as just not talent all the time or what you can do. I don't expect the tight end to win certain matchups, because if the defensive end is losing that matchup, I look at the defensive end in a bad way. In my opinion, I don't think defensive ends should lose to tight ends. That's just how I feel about it. So when I see a tight end win, I think that's a plus for me. And you do see Sadiq get some wins against some bigger players, some bigger linebackers. So him being a blocker is something that I think he can do. It's not something maybe he's the best at it, or he's like the greatest type of guy at that situation. But I think he does have some good fits in there when he is run blocking. So I think it's good enough, and I think he's willing. Right. We'll talk about some of these other guys who aren't as willing that we'll be talking about today. He is very willing to get in there and get a little messy in there. So from that perspective, I think he is a good blocker in my opinion. But really shines as a receiver. I think he runs good routes. I wouldn't go all the way with great there, but I think he runs good routes, and you can really see how fast he is on film. That 4.3 is not surprising. He can move. He moves like a wide receiver running downfield, and like I said, he's type of tight end. He's good for those West Coast offenses where they're running a lot of those choice routes and those slant routes. You get him isolated on some linebackers and some safeties and things like that. Because certain coverages, you're gonna really set him up. And then, teams that want to throw more downfield and run him up with the seams, and do those type of routes. He's got that too as well. You could run some over routes, some deep posts with him, some deep corners in the red zone, those type of things that you could do with Sadiq. There's a whole lot you could put in your mind though. Yeah, he really did. He kind of stood out from this group because, like I said, I think the blocking is there, right? And like I said, I did see that people knocking him about that, but I feel like that is something that he can do. And then when you add that receiving ability that he has, it just puts him way up there. The athletic ability, the speed, it's all there. The route running, so. Maybe you could talk about his hands a little bit, but I think that he maybe has some inconsistent drops here and there, but I think overall he has pretty good hands as well. So yeah, I enjoyed his film. I think he definitely is a first round player.
So I've seen probably more knocks on his hands than I have on his blocking.
Okay.
Like, at least what's coming through my feed and what I hear other people talking about on the different podcasts. I think his hands are being questioned a lot more. Like, I guess so a couple things to think about, right? Because not every tight end is Brock Bowers. Now you have the privilege of seeing Brock Bowers play for your team,
Yeah.
right? But when you draft a tight end, if you're comparing the tight end to Brock Bowers, you're probably going to lose, right? Right. I mean, that's one of the best tight ends in the league, right? So, so like being a Bills fan, for example, like Dawson Knox can't compare to Brock Bowers, but Dawson Knox is a really good tight end.
Yeah.
And the question that I think should be asked about Sadiq is, are you getting a really good tight end, or are you getting a tight end that's going to transform your offense? Right? Like Brock Bowers transforms the offense, whereas Dawson Knox is just a good player. Where do you think Sadiq is on that spectrum?
See, I think as a route runner, I think that's where Brock Bowers separates himself from a lot of tight ends. We people can talk about the size, the speed of a lot of these tight ends and how they move, and I think that's where a lot of people get into what they really like about him. They start to compare these guys, right? But the difference is the route running. Like Brock Bowers runs routes like a wide receiver, like everything he does, the movements, the skills, the way that he moves, right? And even as that type of route runner as a tight end, he's gonna have some trouble with some corners, like when they put Patrick Surtain on him and stuff like that. He still has a little trouble with some of those guys, those more refined cornerbacks. But with Sadiq, well, I think his route running is good, right? It's not like that. It's not that dominant. Looking like a wide receiver type of route running, right? So that's why it's not going to be the same level as Brock Bowers, because I thought Brock Bowers in college had inconsistent hands. I think he's looked way better in the NFL, especially with all the crazy catches he's making every single week. But he's become more consistent there. So maybe Sadiq, maybe it's a concentration thing. Sadiq can get better there as well. But when it comes to the route running, that's where Brock Bowers separates himself from all these guys, right? Because Sadiq is a good route runner. Right. But I don't think can I line up Sadiq against some of the best corners in the NFL and he's going to beat him? I don't think so. I don't think that could happen. But if I match up Sadiq with the right guys and maybe even some lower safeties, some lower nickels, he is going to beat some of those guys. Right. But there could be times where somebody can maybe shut him down a little bit just because he's still a tight end at the end of the day. And like I said, I still feel like he is naturally a tight end. Like he's not like a wide receiver. Like I feel like Sadiq is a tight end. So there's going to be times where there's going to be certain guys he can't beat just because he is one. Now, could he run past those guys? Yes, he could definitely run past them. I mean, because he is freakishly fast. Like that's what I noticed the most on film when I really dug into it is just how fast he is. Like you could see it. Like he's running downfield. He looks like a 4.3 type of guy. That's not shocking at the combine at all when you match it to the film. So the speed is there. Yeah. So he has the elite speed, the elite athleticism. It's just a route running overall. He still looks like a tight end, right? I mean, it's Brock Bowers. It's just totally different. I see Brock Bowers just beat any corner in the slot. Like there's not a slot corner in the NFL. I feel like can guard Brock Bowers, right? I mean, and then the best corners in the NFL are the only ones that can shut him down. I don't feel that way. You're not going to feel that way with Sadiq or many tight ends that come out.
So when you look at Sadiq's usage at the NFL level, do you see him as a slot player? Do you see him as an inline tight end? Do you think you could do both? Or how would you hope that his NFL offensive coordinator sees him to use him to the best of his ability?
I think, you can use him in line a lot more than, people may think, in my opinion. I don't think he has to be a pure flex guy. I think you use him in line. And I think that's going to take advantage of his speed. I mean, if you're a smart coordinator, in my opinion, and you have the ability to take advantage of that speed, I mean, the best matchups are the further inside. I mean, you get him on a linebacker, and there's not a lot of linebackers in the NFL that run 4.3s, and the guys that we rave about, they aren't on every single 32. They're all 32 teams, right? There's gonna be some guy out there who runs a 4.7, right? And you're gonna get Sadiq lined up inside, right? You could just kind of get him up the seams, man. Like it'd be, it's crazy to say, but like a team like the Patriots got their hands on him, and they use some of those inline, what I would say, concepts that they like to use off play action. I mean, he becomes a great target for Drake May right up the field, but I'm not saying he'll fall that far, but the type of player that he is, you get him in the right system, you line up in line, that's where you're gonna get the best matchup with him because he can't block, right? It's not like he can't block at all. So Will he be moved around in the slot like on third down? Yes, but I think on first down off play action, if you get him in line in certain areas, like he's gonna be hard to stop. Or like if you get him in the backfield, line up at fullback, and do some play action, have him go through that C gap and run a corner route. How many linebackers are going to stick with him on that? I mean, he might score touchdowns off that because he's so fast. So you got to take advantage of that speed when you use him, in my opinion. So there's a lot of things you could do because I think him being able to block makes it easier for to keep him in line.
Okay, so we talked about Sadiq. Like you're projecting him to go round 1.
Yeah.
How high? Like if he goes top 14, would that surprise you?
No, not at all. Because this is an offensive league. Like when I was watching it, I was thinking like, Travis Kelce's getting older. I mean, with the Chiefs take him at 9. I mean, I think that might be a sneaky Chiefs pick at 9. He gives a deep field target, right, for Travis Kelce, and we're moving into more 12 personnel use in this league, right? And I know they got Noah Gray over there, but obviously he's not emerging as this guy for Patrick Mahomes, will that already be happening? I mean, Patrick Mahomes is, even though the numbers aren't the same, he's still Patrick Mahomes. You can see it whenever he's playing. So you get some targets out there, it's going to make it happen. So I think he might be a sneaky pick at 9 for the Chiefs. I mean, it's there. I wouldn't be the happiest about that pick, but it's there. I mean, it's there in front of him, and like I said, he has athleticism, right? TJ Hawkinson went there. I feel like he's a little bit better prospect than TJ Hawkinson, in my opinion. So,
okay, that's a good shout out. I hadn't heard that one yet. Like I've heard a lot of takes this draft season, but like because Sadiq at 9, that to me feels rich relative to the other people that have podcasted.
Yeah,
but like the Rams at 13 seem to be a fun place to put him.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like if the Chiefs feel like he's gonna go, at 13 or something like that, I mean, they might just pull the trigger. So I mean, I'm not saying that that's gonna be a for sure thing. It just wouldn't shock me if he went top 10 just because his combine,
right,
and the film. It wouldn't shock me if that happened. I mean, and I think with the league going towards these 12 personnel looks and these kind of going back to the run game and those type of things, I think tight end becomes a little bit more of a position that people look to build with. So yeah, I think he could be that guy for sure. And it could happen, but I do think it is probably gonna be that 10 to 20 range. But if he does go top 10, it would be the Chiefs, in my opinion.
Yep. Okay. And then who's the next tight end that you watched and you want to just talk about him here on the show? Because I know that we had like 6 on the list.
Yeah, the guy who really stood out to me was Max Clare. I thought Clare would definitely be tight end 2 for me if I was just going off the film that I was watching this week. One, because we're gonna get into the other guys, which I think some of them are kind of funny, but I think with Clare is I know that he's a good blocker. I know that for sure. He's probably one of the better. I mean, might be from the higher guys, who just aren't going to come in the NFL as pure blocking tight ends that maybe have some receiver upside. I think that he's probably the best blocking tight end out of this group. He's steady there. He does a good job. He takes on defensive ends. He's always working in the run game. He takes advantage of it. He makes some of the best blocks that he can make on those type of things. And I think he's asked to do that a lot, right? Especially with having, Smith and Carnell Tate out there kind of taking up all the targets. You really didn't see him get targeted too much in the receiving game. But, I mean, he had a game against, I believe it was Minnesota. I believe. I could be wrong about this. But it's a game where I think Tate and Smith didn't play. And he kind of got a chance to be a wide receiver. He had 107 receiving yards, on 8 catches. And I remember hearing from the Senior Bowl the most, where he was at the Senior Bowl. He was really working those safeties, man. The safeties had problems with him all day. Linebackers had problems with him all day. He was getting open. He had some receiver upside you didn't really see at Ohio State. And I think putting that all together and then seeing that game where I believe he had the 107 yards. I believe it was Minnesota. Don't quote me on that, but that he really kind of showed himself when he had to be the main target that game at Ohio State. I mean, the other guys were out, and he had to be the main target. He really showed himself that he could be have some serious receiver upside that we're not talking about with him. So that was the guy who really stood out to me, just because I think his route running is pretty good. I think he's a good route runner. Like I said, when you talk about tight ends, I mean, I think a good route runner is definitely what you want to see, because can he beat linebackers, right? And then could he beat a safety? I mean, that's really what you're thinking of when you think of the tight ends, in my opinion. I mean, when they get to beating guys outside, that's when we get to special. So I think he can do that. I think he can win inside. Definitely knows how, has great hands. Definitely, has a little bit of yak ability in him too. Like, I think he can make some guys miss when he gets an open field a little bit. So I was really impressed with him. I thought that he might be, a little underrated when it comes to this tight end positions. I know there's not a lot of, it's just kind of dead there at the position, because there's really not a lot of guys who are like who do both, that really stand out, right? That do that block and receiving. I mean, that's really how you get taken higher in the draft with tight end. You got to be able to block too, right? So when you can't block, it kind of, you see the class kind of die down, because I mean, when you're grading a tight end, like I have to grade your blocking. Like I can't skip over that, right? That's one thing we learned in the scouting academy. That is a trait that the NFL looks at when they're breaking down tight ends. So you just can't ignore it. And like I said, Claire does that really well. And then you add in the receiver upside, the good Senior Bowl. Like I think there's a chance he might be the second tight end taken in this draft. I think there's a chance for that to happen. And like I said, that one game where he went out there and he played really well, I think that showed a lot, in my opinion. I showed what he could really be like and what he could really do.
So I'm going to advise you to archive that Minnesota-Ohio State footage. So there is a safety for Minnesota that we were really high on in the summer, but he chose to go back to school.
Okay.
You're going to be coming back to that tape 12 months from now, I bet.
All right. And my bad. It was Rutgers.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, okay, because I think the safety's name, I'll have to check, but Kerry Thomas. And I know that you don't do names, you do numbers. I'd have to go look up what his number is. But then the other thing that you did a really good job of emphasizing is, I want to remind everybody, this is not a fantasy football podcast. This is an NFL team building podcast.
Yeah.
And a tight end needs to block and catch, right?
Yeah.
So prior to this season, do you know who caught the first touchdown pass for Buffalo in every playoff game of Josh Allen's career? It was Dawson Knox.
Oh, wow.
Right? Now, Dawson Knox isn't going to win anybody any fantasy titles.
Mm.
Right? He doesn't even get 40 catches a year.
Yeah.
Right? But he's an NFL tight end because he blocks. There's some games he'll catch 5, some games he'll catch 0.
Yeah.
So like you're saying here with Max Clare, this is an NFL tight end.
Mm.
You won't need to take him off the field.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get to some guys that might be pass receivers only as we move through your list. But ultimately, if the only thing you do as a tight end is catch, you're going to be compared to a slot receiver.
Yeah.
Meaning that if the only thing that you do is catch, would I rather have Zachariah Branch on the field or a tight end that doesn't block? Right. And there becomes a conversation. We've had that conversation on this channel numerous times. But Marcus, who's the next tight end that you want to talk about?
The next tight end when we talk about, we can get into it with kind of the guys who don't block. I mean, we can get into Eli Stowers. Eli Stowers.
And I had a feeling that's where you were going to go next, but go ahead.
Yeah, because to me, I mean, is Eli Stowers a tight end? You know why I don't feel like he is?
Yep.
It's because they don't feel like he is. When I started getting into the film and I was trying to find him, I couldn't find him because I was expecting him to be in line. And then I was like, no, okay, that's not him. And I kept searching him thinking, oh, there he is. There's a tall guy. But I didn't search for some film to see where he was even in line. He was in line, like probably one of the lowest tight ends in lines I've seen in a minute. Right. Because I think, another guy we're going to talk about, the other team forced that guy to be in line, even though maybe they shouldn't have, but they forced him to be. Stowers was not in line at all. He did not block. And the thing is, the funny thing with him is like when he was asked to block, the game I did watch, I forgot which team it was, but one of the games I did watch, when he was asked to block, he played his most inline snaps. I had to look for this, Jim. I had to go to PFF and see where was the game where he played tight end the most. And I went to that game and he blocked. He didn't block that bad. So that was kind of the weird thing with me. Is like it wasn't like that he was this absolutely awful blocker. Of course, there were some bad blocks here and there, so maybe it's not a consistent thing. But that was my thing with him. Is like, is he really a tight end? Like, am I drafting a big, huge slot guy, or am I getting a tight end? And I think that's where his value is going to go. Like, it's hard for the NFL to be like, you're a tight end who just is a flex and you don't block at all,
right?
Because on third down we'd like 11 personnel. We don't want to go 12 on third down. We don't. We want to have that third wide receiver in there because it's gonna be more DBs and we can get more into Star Wars receiving in a second, but like that's kind of my thing with him is like, where do I take you? Because I know you can only do one thing. And it becomes a hard value thing.
Yeah, and that's the slot receiver argument. Like, for example, if you see Stowers and you only see somebody that can catch passes, would you rather have Antonio Williams or Eli Stowers? Antonio Williams, a wide receiver from Clemson, Eli Stowers, tight end from Vanderbilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, which one would you rather have? And Antonio Williams is going to be better at that slot role, probably, than Stowers will. So, to your point, if you have Antonio Williams graded as a late second, third round guy, Stowers will probably be around later.
Yeah.
But carry on with Stowers.
Yeah. So, when it comes to receiving though, man, I think he's a really good player there. He is. You can see the talent. I mean, the being that tall with that vertical leap, there's a whole lot you can do with him as a receiver, and I think that he does a good job playing in the slot too, understanding zones, knowing when to find the hole in the zone, make himself available to the quarterback. I think he has that deep ability too. He can win deep. You can really work some things in there with him as well. And I think that, they're able to lean on him in certain moments too, I believe, like, and so that when they needed to move the football, right. They're able to lean on him in certain moments and have him kind of, have a bigger impact in the game. And I think that was pretty consistent overall with him. It's just like when you watch him though, it's like, how much can I really have you on the field in the NFL? It's just kind of a trippy thing to watch with him. But I feel like there's a lot of upside with him when it comes to just the receiving position too. Even at certain points, they are, there's what happens with tight ends too, is like, since you play in the slot, they still want to throw outside for the most part. So you saw, Diego ended up doing most of that. He's moving, he's throwing outside a lot more. And, you're not seeing Stowers maybe get the targets that he should get. Right. But it's with him, it just becomes that conversation where, like, what do I really do with you when I get you in the NFL? Like, and to me, it's always funny when I watch these guys. I'm like, you should have just lost weight and been a wide receiver. Like, I don't understand. Like, you had 4 years to work this out. They just keep you at tight end. Like, if you're not going to have him block, it's just crazy to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he needs to be in line. And even because I feel like even college football with tight ends, if you keep them in line at certain points, it helps you out. But it just, with him, it's just hard to evaluate him as a tight end if I can't watch you block. I feel like it's a misvaluation. I'm evaluating you as a receiver. And to your point, I mean, I'm going to take a slot receiver over you because you're not going to win against everybody. It's just the way it is. And, like I said, because he's kind of stiff a little bit too. I think he's got some stiffness to him. Like, how well can he wiggle past things? But I do think that he is a deep threat. Right. And, somebody that you're going to have to figure out, like, can he block? Can I teach him to block? Does he have a blocking mentality? I mean, that was like a hardest thing for Darren Waller. I mean, Darren Waller made the transition from wide receiver to tight end. He was talking about how, what Brian Dable was doing with him. He didn't like that. Right. I mean, yeah, because you're still a receiver. So will Stowers have that mentality to do what it takes to block? And that's why I like Sadiq, because like even if you want to critique how Sadiq blocks, he has the mentality of a tight end that to block. Right, he's in there. He's in the grimy. He's in that grimy area, and that's why I feel like there's so much you could do with him at the next level. But Stowers is like, oh, what can I really do with you? I mean, I could only kind of run you downfield, and I mean, there's some tight ends that came out like that have never really become a thing in the NFL, right? I mean, those type of tight ends don't become great NFL tight ends. They just don't. It just doesn't work. It never does.
Well, and I think that's also a really good point about a great NFL tight end, because I think from a team building standpoint, you just want good tight ends.
Yeah.
The Brock Bowers don't come along. And like, even if you think of like Brock Bowers to the guy in Atlanta, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Right. Kyle Pitts had, I think, the same hype. Brock Bowers, I think, is living up to that hype more.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of the idea, is I think a lot of these tight ends get hyped up because they're among the best athletes on the football field. Pound for pound, like you don't see 240, 260 pound guys move like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They're really good athletes, but that may not translate to some of the production that we would expect to see, which is why I think a lot of these tight ends are actually going to be going on day 3. We love them as athletes, but there's a project, and tight ends are among the slowest development positions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially because you got. If I got to teach you how to block, I mean that's a bad thing, and that's why when I was watching Steve, I love Jamari Johnson. He's coming out next year. I know that. That's the guy. I would have watched this season because he could block and he's huge. He can run routes. Like that's what the NFL wants. They want that type of guy. And so I'm watching him. He's on my watch list. I
am looking forward to summer scouting in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
The next draft class feels very exciting. And we've been covering this one since May, so I'm already ready for something new. But the joys of covering the draft 12 months a year.
Yeah.
Marcus, who's the next tight end that you want to bring to everybody's attention?
All right. I think the next one, because I'll finish it with the last guy. We'll talk about Sam Roush. We talk about like normal good tight ends in the NFL. I mean, this is that guy, right? This is the normal 50 catch, baby, 45 catch guy who blocks really well. He is like the model, like tight end for like an offense with like 2 good receivers, and you have a good tight end in the middle who gets like touchdowns in the red zone for you, score some touchdowns. Sam, because that I feel like everything when I watch with Sam Roush, he runs a 4.7. It's nothing like super exciting, but he blocks well, right? He's a good blocker. The route running isn't the greatest, but he can run some routes, do some good things for you in the slot too. I think he has a little bit of ability to kind of win downfield a little bit too against certain guys and certain looks. Like I said, you get those play action corner routes with tight ends and things like that. I think he can win some of those routes, especially if you get him set up with some good blocking, to set it up and then add the play action off it with some of those blocking plays. I think there's a lot of things you could like with Roush there. I think Roush has that just kind of a pure tight end thing to him, which we talk about some of these other guys, like Stowers, and talk about Trigg and a little bit who more kind of flashier tight ends. That's why like a guy like Roush or maybe some other guys, you talk about, might go ahead of those guys because Roush is a tight end that NFL, that's the NFL tight end. Like it's the evaluation. He has a full evaluation of the tight end position. So I think that might push him up a little bit too, where he's taking, day 3 or something like that, maybe in the 4th round or something like that, because he has that natural tight end ability, right? That you come in the offense, you block. I can develop you into a starter, maybe, right? Maybe you become a better player. You could be that 12 personnel guy at first, where you're blocking, and then you get some catches in the red zone. Somebody goes down, you have some good games, and then I might get rid of that tight end. You become a starter, right? I feel like that's the type of guy that he really is, in my opinion. Like he's that guy. Like, the Raiders might lose Michael Mayer. Like if Roush was in the 5th round, the Raiders I wouldn't feel bad about that, because I feel like he could be a perfect guy behind Brock Bowers, where he doesn't take too much shine from him, but also keeps the 12 personnel going, where you can line up Brock Bowers everywhere and then have Roush in there blocking. Like he's that type of guy, in my opinion. Like he might not be a superstar, but I feel like he's a guy who might play a long time. Right, he's that type of player, right? So, yeah, it's kind of the flavor you like with him a little bit, and I think that's where to see some teams kind of be a little, where I would say like maybe push him up a little higher with the tight end position. I'm not saying like other skill sets or past other guys,
Right.
but for these tight ends, like he might end up being the third one taken out of these guys that we're talking about, behind these kind of guys who are just moving around, right? So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him overall, but I think that he's kind of that old school tight end. He's a real old school guy. Definitely a normal tight end, definitely a Stanford tight end. I would say that too. Definitely. When I watched it, I'm like, yes, I don't know what it doesn't matter the coach, but like the Stanford tight end is there, and he's gonna show up and do what you want to do, right? So I do believe that he could be a guy that maybe starts off in that 12 personnel, backup role, blocks really well, starts to get some targets, and then like year 3, year 4, you might see him become that starter tight end.
Love the shout out on Roush and the Stanford tight ends. It's Stanford tight ends, Iowa offensive linemen, Ohio State wide receivers. They just keep coming.
Yeah. It's like it doesn't matter the coach. Like they got to do coach. Shaw's gone, right? I was like, how did they get in there?
We're not scouting the helmet, but we are scouting the helmet. Yeah. But ironically, like one of the things that makes college unique is too cheap of an adjective, but one of the things that like college, you can recruit your types, and you can recruit like Stanford could recruit 5 tight ends that are the same type, put them on the practice field, and then we only talk about the one guy that emerged out of that group of 5 that they recruited. Yeah. Then the next year, they're just going to go recruit 5 of the same type again. So, the coach will tell the scouts, I want this type of player. And some of the draft professors are college scouts, like Owen on Tuesdays and Wednesdays is a college scout. Yeah. So Owen would say, like, okay, the coach goes to him and says, I need a player like this. And it's Owen's job to go out and find the player.
Yeah.
Right. And he wants a type. He wants a certain body size, a certain quickness. Right. And he may not be watching a lot of film to come to that evaluation. But this isn't a scouting podcast today. Marcus, who's the next tight end?
All right. So the next one would be Trigg, Michael Trigg, who is kind of very similar to Stowers. Yeah. It's very, very similar, right? Of course, I mean, I think Trigg is a more talented receiver, though. I think he's really talented there. I think that's something he can, like an NFL team would fall in love with his receiving ability, right? And he runs routes pretty well. I think his hands can be inconsistent, but he has the crazy acrobatic catches. Everybody's probably talk about the catch he had against Kansas State. I mean, that's probably what really put him on the map was that catch. I mean, that's when people were like, "Oh my God, who is this guy? This guy's going to be a first round tight end." You saw that all over Twitter after that catch that he made. And yeah, he has that receiving ability. I think he does a good job with Yak too. You can see that with the touchdown he had against ASU late in that game. He definitely has that Yak ability as well. And I think when you compare him to Stowers, I think he's just a better route runner overall. I think there's more flexibility with him, more flexibility in the hips. He's able to kind of do a good job against zone as well. You could run him up the seams too. In my opinion. So I think there's a lot to like with him, but with the difference between him and Eli there is that Trigg lined up in line. They did line him up in line, but like he just didn't want to block. He does not like it. This is another guy, because even Stowers, like when he did block, like I said, they did block, he looked like that he was more willing. So there's maybe you can unlock it. Right, there was some willingness. Like Trigg, like he wants nothing to do with it. Like he's literally like patting people. He doesn't even impact. He's just he's affecting the whole run game. Like they need to run the ball here, and like he was a liability. Like literally, he literally like just him being out there. Like that's why maybe the Vanderbilt coach is a little smarter than maybe we think, because the Vanderbilt coach had Trigg, he would have been with their Stowers. Stowers kind of just. You're not blocking at all here. We're not letting you. We have two other guys that can block. You're not going to do that at all. But Trigg, they put him in there, but he just didn't want to. Like, he has no want to at all. That's what scares me the most about him. He doesn't want to. Like, he is pitter-patting people. He's like touching guys' backs really nicely. Like man, you're affecting our run game. Like, we need you to block at least a little bit. And if you're not going to touch anybody or not going to even have any form with it, you're just going to kind of pitter-pat out there and not do anything, like, you're not helping the team. I mean, you're really going to put the team in a bad position. And that's what, I wonder where he goes in this because, like, what's worse, having film of you not blocking or having film of you just looking terrible with no effort,
right?
Lazy blocking. Like, what's the worst look?
The absence of intelligence may actually be the best intelligence, because if you've actually seen the negative, it's better than not seeing it. But in addition to that, on Trigg, it needs to be noted that he has played for 3 teams over his college career.
Yeah.
And he was suspended in 2024 at Baylor.
Okay.
He was kicked off the 2023 Ole Miss team.
Oh, wow.
And then he's also spent time at USC. So everything that you said is what I've heard on Trigg this entire cycle. And then you have to layer in the off-field things. So, I mean, there's people, like when we do our 3-round mocks on Tuesdays, or excuse me, on Fridays, that he goes in the 2nd round.
Wow.
There's people that really like Trigg. One of them is a Chiefs guy.
Wow.
Really likes Trigg. But I don't, like, with his off-field stuff, if I'm a GM, I don't want to touch that until after round 4 ends. Like, let somebody else take that risk rounds 1 through 4. I'll take the risk round 5.
Yeah, because it's just the issue. Like, it's just how terrible the blocking is to me. Like it is funny. I'm looking at these PFF grades and they're good blocking grades, but like I just don't understand when he's out there. It just looks like he doesn't want to do it, and that's in the NFL, man. If you are out there, man, the thing is, like, I think a lot of people don't talk about with some of these NFL teams is how much they scout players on defense and they attack players on defense in the NFL. Like, I think that's not talked about a lot. And I think that's when you're somebody like Trigg, like they're gonna be like crashing on him on stuff. They're gonna be attacking him because they know he don't want to be, he don't want to do it. Right. And like they're gonna be pointing out, D-line coaches are old school as hell. They're gonna be, calling him a pussy in the sorry, I have to say
that's all right. So no, but to your point, like, this happens when a backup running back is put in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So when the Patriots came back against the Falcons, the starting running back went down, the backup running back went in, and the Patriots knew he couldn't pick up a blitz. So they were blitzing because they knew what the weakness of the player was.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you do. That's like, I always feel that there's one of 2 logics that win an NFL game. One is a team was able to exploit a weakness of the other team significantly. The other was, we have fewer weaknesses that could not be exploited, right? So could we either exploit a weakness, or do we have no weaknesses that could be exploited? But you're trying to build your team so that you have no weaknesses.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you have to have a dominant strength, but if you can avoid having a weakness that can be exploited, that's a way to win. But the other way is just be able to exploit. If there's any weakness in the other team, you need to be good enough to exploit it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think Trigg's issue, that'll be his issue in the NFL. I just couldn't see him going that high. Because like I said, I mean, when you have him going that high, I think you're ignoring the blocking, because the NFL, like I'm telling you, that is a part of their scouting tight ends. Like, that is a big part. And you have a bad grade there. There might be some teams that ignore it. There might be some, but you don't see it that much, man. You don't see it that much. It's a factor. You know what I mean? Like, because even like I said, even with Brock Bowers, which I thought he's got way better than the NFL at blocking, and that was kind of his issue too. But they are all willing, and you're going to see some good blocks from them, right? Same with Michael Mayer. I think Michael Mayer was a little inconsistent coming out as a blocker too, but you had some really good blocks from him on film. The NFL, like, okay, they're going to be like, okay, we could work on that. We can fix it there as long as you got that will, because you sometimes as a tight end, you're supposed to lose that matchup, man. I mean, that's we're downgrading a defensive end. I always say this when I look at tight ends blocking. I'm downgrading a defensive end for losing to you. So if I'm downgrading that, am I really going to come at you that hard if you're losing that matchup? I mean, he's supposed to win it. That's a mismatch,
right?
And if you're hanging in there and holding on, like just for long enough for that hole to open, and maybe you don't have the greatest block in the world, you're doing your job. So that's kind of how I look at tight end blocking a little bit, but you got to at least have the willpower.
Yeah, and I know that there's a lot of other tight ends in the class, and I know that we're not going to be able to get to them on this podcast. But like one guy that caught my eye within the first 2 weeks of the season was DJ Rogers at TCU. And I remembered, like, okay, so he wasn't on any of the summer scouting.
Mm-hmm.
So like, okay, who's DJ Rogers? Well, it turns out he was draft eligible. Like, that's the first thing. Okay, so he is in this draft class, even though nobody talked about him in the summer. And then we did a little bit of research, and EJ's like, why did he stay at TCU? Like, he had offers to go to a lot of big SEC schools. So I think Oklahoma gave him an offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember who the other SEC teams were, but he chose to stay at TCU. But DJ Rogers is probably the same level of athlete as Trigg and Stowers.
Okay.
He's going to be probably in the same blocking range as Stowers. Okay. But again, just a plus athlete. So, And he was at the Senior Bowl. He did well at the Senior Bowl. But on the TCU offense, he was like option 3 or 4 because they had some really good wide receivers. So I like giving DJ Rogers a shout out. Are there any other tight ends that you want to talk about?
No, those are kind of the 5 guys that I went over this week. It feels like those are the top guys in this class. But it kind of feels like a weaker tight end class just because I feel like it's more of those, either you're getting a pure blocking tight end or you're getting a pure receiver tight end. And it's not that many of the guys who are mixed of both. And that's when you see those tight end positions get pushed up, is when guys can do both.
Yep. And I would say my other favorite tight end project in the draft class is Marlon Klein from Michigan. So Marlon Klein fits the description of he's that blocker. So he's going to be a plus blocker. Now, he's German. So he's only been playing football for about 4 years.
Okay. Wow.
But he's just prototypical size, has the athleticism. He needs to learn the passing game, though. So I have my eye on where Marlon Klein from Michigan goes, as well as DJ Rogers.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of other tight ends that go in that round 4 or 5 range. I think Daquan Wright from Ole Miss, Joe Reuter from Cincinnati. Those two stick out, as well as Justin Jolly from NC State.
Okay.
Are names that other draft professors are mentioning. But it is funny. I think if we were to poll 10 draft professors, we would get on who their tight end 2 is. I think there would be 5 different names that would be tight end 2, just because of who likes what flavor.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So it's not a class that there's a lot of consensus. Let's say player 2 to player 10.
Yeah.
So, Marcus, you want to take a moment, introduce yourself to everybody watching, tell them about Tape Don't Lie and the other great things that you do.
Yeah, so check me out on Tape Don't Lie. We do shows, 4 shows a week at this point. So, check it out. We do plenty of shows out there. And then make sure that you also check out our draft show. We just dropped a good draft show yesterday with Daryl Jackson Jr. and Bryce Lance. So I'm really excited about that one. It was a good episode, kind of breaking those guys down. And then also check me out on Twitter, posting more draft stuff these days. So definitely digging into it with free agency, basically just kind of fully slowed down. So kind of moving past free agency, full on the draft now, getting all this stuff ready. And and then silverblackpride.com as well. And then check me out on the Epic mock draft too. I did a test run, Jim, on Friday for the poll. Yep. So we'll be ready to go. I got the poll. I figured out how to do a poll on YouTube. We'll be ready to go.
Fantastic. So, yeah, and Marcus, thank you for the shout out with Epic Mock 26. So, I am entertained by some of what I see come through your Twitter feed.
Yeah.
Right, where you're like quote tweeting when somebody says that was a terrible pick, or how could you not pick this, or why did you do 2 of these and none of these? Your followers amuse me. So,
Raiders fans, the thing is, the Raiders fans, man, I don't know about this other fan bases. I feel like every single one has their own top 100. So, like,
agreed. And like, so I'm picking for the Bengals in a 7-round mock right now, and the Bengals followers of Draft Professor hate Chase Besantis round 2. They think Tim Keenan is undraftable, and I'm taking him in round 4. So they absolutely hate it. And I'm like, well, if you're going to critique the picks, you can participate in our mocks so that we can critique you. Right? The view from the cheap seats is always humorous. So Epic Mock 26 is a 32 podcaster mock draft, April 9th, 10th, and 11th. Marcus will be leading the Raiders War Room. So there will be Raiders podcasts on the 10th and the 11th for Epic Mock 26 from the Raiders coming from Marcus. And we'll have 31 other podcasters doing that for their teams. And it's a lot of fun. We've done this before. It's great to have 32 podcasters who want to join Draft Professor to generate this content. And then Draft Professor will have live coverage of the NFL draft all 3 days. We will also have a UDFA and summary show Saturday afternoon, and more UDFA shows on Sunday. So we will be covering this draft even after it ends. And then starting in May, we're on to 2027 kind of thing. So we don't bother grading everybody's drafts. We're just going to start looking at who the new players are. So by July 4th, Draft Professor will tell you who the best 800 players in college football are. So stay tuned, buckle up. I enjoyed the summer scouting almost more than I enjoyed this time of year, almost. But for Marcus, myself, and the 85 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll see you on a podcast again at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody.
All right, cool, man.